Hi guys, it's Alexandra here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to sit down and share with you a readathon that I would like to host here in September. The reason for this readathon is when I moved back into my apartment to start the school year, I had a chance to really take a look at the books on my shelf again, and really it became clear that I have a lot of wonderful books waiting to be read, and I thought that maybe if I created a readathon for people like myself who have a decent physical TBR, that maybe that would be the motivation I need to really dive into my collection and start reading the books that are there. And I thought that it paired really nicely with the low buy that I am on for books from now until the end of this year. Alright, so let's take a look at what is this readathon going to be all about. Well, the readathon is called the Get Your Shelf Together Readathon because it is focused on taking a look at what you already own, whether it be physical books on an actual shelf or ebooks that you have already purchased, and reading through some of your collection instead of always feeling this need to go and buy new. When is it going to take place? I'm going to give myself and anybody who'd like to participate the entire month of September, so September 1st through the 30th. This is going to be round one. We can always do more rounds later on, either this year or in the beginning of 2021. This is the kind of readathon that prompts can be added and taken away as we morph and as our shelves begin to change as well. And let's talk about what's the goal really with this. So obviously the first goal is beginning to read through some of our physical TBR, both physical hard copies, paperback copies of books, as well as digital ebooks. But it's also just to have fun and really create kind of a relaxed but motivated reading environment. That's kind of what I need right now, are some guidelines to help me as I'm checking out my physical TBR. I've created 6 prompts for the first round of the Get Your Shelf Together Readathon. You can double up and use a book for more than one prompt. You can read one book per prompt. You can combine a book for 2 or 3. It doesn't really matter to me. Again, this is relaxed but motivated. And these are just kind of made from, as I took a look at my shelf, what were the areas that I was seeing the most need to work on for me. If you need to kind of change up some of the prompts to work best for you and what your physical collection looks like, do that. This is a no stress kind of thing. Feel free, if you're going to do it, add prompts, take ones away. This is what you need it and want it to be so that you can get in and really start enjoying the books that are in your collection. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the prompts. I'm going to share the prompt and then I'll talk about some of the books that I'm potentially looking at. This is not a hard and fast TBR for me because I've said in the past that I don't really do that well with TBRs, but I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what am I looking at reading potentially during this readathon. The first prompt is finish that series. Read the next book in a series that has been on your shelf for a while. The first book I'm thinking about potentially picking up for this one is Keeper of the Lost Cities Flashback. This is book number 7. I have book 7 and 8 left, and then I'll be caught up with this series. And I just really would like to kind of potentially get caught up before the end of 2020, and this could be a good time to do it. If I don't read that, or if I'm not feeling it, I might read Soul of the Sword by Julie Kagawa. This hasn't been on my shelf for a super long time, but it has been with me since more towards the beginning of the stay-at-home order and that kind of stuff. And I really liked the first one, and I would like to get this entire trilogy read before the end of the year as well. So this could be a good opportunity to get one more book done in that trilogy. The next prompt is don't forget the cover by. Read a book on your shelf that you bought because you thought the cover was beautiful, but has since then just been sitting unread. For me, the 2 that I'm potentially looking at reading and picking between are Home Before Dark and The Library of Legends. It's not that I am not interested in these stories and that they were purely a cover buy, but the cover certainly did play a role in me picking them. The Library of Legends is one that I'm interested, like I said, in the book because of the story, but the cover is also beautiful. This book is a historical fantasy novel that's set in China in the 1930s during the time when Japan began to bomb the country. And this group of school children has to flee, and on their journey, they're not only trying to protect themselves, but they have been tasked with keeping a very valuable ancient item safe. And that item, I believe, has some magical properties to it. But it does sound really good, so this is one possible book I'm looking at for the second prompt. And the other one was Home Before Dark. This is a suspense kind of thriller, leaning on that paranormal side type book. And it follows our main character, Maggie. Basically, she grew up in this house, and her dad was always talking about how it was super haunted, and she never believed him. But then as an adult, she ends up kind of back in the hometown working with this house, and she begins to see that maybe her dad was correct about what was going on in this house. It sounds kind of scary and good, but I definitely absolutely love the color. It's just super bright green and yellow, even though it doesn't really pick up that way here on camera. The next prompt is, it's ancient history. Read one of the books that has been on your shelf the longest. The two that I am potentially looking at reading are All for One by Melissa Dela Cruz, and then The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. All for One is the third book in the Alex and Eliza trilogy. It's basically historical fiction based on the lives of Alexander Hamilton and Eliza Schuyler. And I read the first two books in the trilogy, really enjoyed them, and I started to read this book in the past, and it didn't quite catch my interest at the time. I think just because I wasn't in the mood for historical fiction, but I think that I potentially could be at some point this month ready to read this, and I would just also really like to get this trilogy done as well. This could kind of fit this prompt as well as the read the next book in a series, so I could double down on that if I wanted to. Now, The Sun is Also a Star. This one is almost embarrassing how long it has been on my TBR. It has been on my shelf since before the movie came out. I want to read the book and then watch the movie. The next prompt is, I like big books and I cannot lie. Read a big or intimidating book from your collection. I have a lot of those, honestly, so these are certainly not the only options. The first one is something that I'm already reading, and that's Midnight Sun. I just want to finish it. I am currently 266 pages in. I'm tabbing it up because I do still think I'd like to do kind of a spoilery book talk with this, but this will be priority number one here at the beginning of the month. And then once this is done, I want to move on to one of the other big books in my collection. My goal with this prompt for me personally is not to finish these large books other than Midnight Sun, but just to get started on them and really, get a good chunk of the way through so that I can hopefully finish them up then in October and just start working my way through these books that I am neglecting to pick up because I am kind of intimidated by the number of pages. One I'm thinking about picking up after I finish Midnight Sun is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is book one in the Stormlight Archive series. I know that there are 3 books out currently, and the 4th book is coming out at some point this fall. I have not read any of them. I hear pretty much nothing but good things about them, and I really am super interested in reading some Brandon Sanderson. I'm a little more interested right now in kind of getting through some of the Stormlight Archive series so that I can kind of catch up and maybe be present closer to the time of the release of the next book. I know I won't be ready to go by the time the 4th book releases, but maybe I could be there reading it in a couple months after the release instead of, a year or 2 after the release if I were to start working on reading the series. But basically, this is an adult fantasy novel. I don't actually know a ton about the plot. I know it's multi-perspective and there's some cool magic that goes on. I'm excited. I'm definitely really intrigued and would like to pick this up fairly soon, even if it's not in September. With that being said, there's another book that I was really interested in possibly picking up as I looked at my shelf, and that would be House of Earth and Blood, part of the Crescent City series that Sarah J. Maas released not that long ago. This is an adult fantasy series as well. And I, again, don't know a ton about it, but I heard great things about it. It sounds like it'd be a fairly, like, fast-paced read, and I am interested in, you know, that kind of trait in long books whenever possible, because I do think it makes them go by a little bit faster. Granted, this is not nearly as long as The Way of Kings. This is like 800 something. Way of Kings is around 1,000 pages. So again, I'm not thinking of finishing these this month, but I might pick one of those books up and try and get, you know, 100 or 200 pages into it throughout the month of September. The fifth prompt is, oh, the places you'll go. Read a book that is set in a different country than yours. For this prompt, I pretty much just have one book that I'm looking at, and that is Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. This is a book that he wrote about his own story, and it essentially tells of when he went to climb Mount Everest. He and his group made it to the summit, and he had turned around to hike back out of the death zone, and he did not keep, you know, super close track of where the rest of his party was, and he got ahead of them. And unknown to him, there was a huge storm that started to blow through and separated him from the rest of the group, and he had stopped to camp, and the next morning he figured that they would be rolling through and that they would catch back up, but unfortunately that was not what happened. Alrighty, and last but not least, prompt number 6 is always a fave. Read a book from your favorite genre. I was excited to do this because one of my favorite genres is cozy mysteries, and I still have quite a few unread cozy mysteries on my shelf. I did actually get a couple new cozy mysteries because I had reached my goal of reading 5 books from my shelf, and then I could buy another one. And I went ahead and I got Still Knife Painting by Cheryl Holland, and I am actually 78 pages into this one, so it will be my first book that I'm trying to read from this particular category during the month. This book follows Miranda. She is returning home to Eastern Kentucky, and she has started a business where she takes groups of people on hikes in the woods, and then they'll stop at a scenic overlook and they will be guided through a painting, kind of like a Bob Ross type situation, and then they will hike back, and they'll, after they're done painting and hiking, be served a southern home-cooked meal, and along with that there will be a person who is giving them moonshine pairings that go with the meal that they're eating. Things seem to be going pretty well for Miranda on her first trip out with her first group of clients, but it all falls to pieces when the cook is found dead in her kitchen, and they then must figure out who committed this crime. And then the next cozy mystery that I'm thinking about picking up if I get a chance is Murder in an Irish Village by Charlene O'Connor. This, honestly, I didn't really read the back of it. I just saw that it said first in a new series and that it was set in Ireland, and I was sold. I got to go to Ireland, not this summer, but the summer before, and I love everything about it. I think if I could live in another country, I'd probably pick Ireland, or I might pick somewhere in France as well, but I just love Ireland so much. And the thought of a cozy mystery set in an Irish village, there wasn't much better than that. Alrighty guys, so that is the Get Your Shelf Together readathon that I'm going to be hosting and participating in from September 1st through the 30th. Feel free to join me on this. If you make videos and you'd like to participate and share with me your TBR, feel free to leave the link to your TBR video in the comments, or if you don't make videos but you'd still like to participate, feel free to leave your TBR in the comments. I'm going to be trying to get back on a bit more this month and checking in on comments and making more videos. But I hope that this was fun to listen to, even if you are not going to participate. And I hope that maybe it motivated you to dive into your shelf and see what great books are lying in wait for you to read. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.